it's easier to fool people than to convince them they have been fooled. I heard this quote yesterday, and I've been thinking about it a lot. That's the problem. That's a predicament that keeps alienated children from learning the truth. I think it's easier to believe the lies that your alienator parent is telling you rather than considering the possibility that they're lying to you. That's really hard. I'm going to start with a question that I got yesterday, which is, my niece and nephew have been alienated against their father, my brother. As an aunt or other supporting family member, what can we do to help? Sometimes we just feel powerless in the situation and see virtually no hope on the horizon regarding the situation. So this is a great question, as parental alienation often affects more than just the parent and child. It often affects the extended family. I didn't have that in my own personal case, but I think that is a characteristic of parental alienation, that the rejection does extend to the extended family. So I guess I have some advice. From my point of view, I could see how some things would be helpful. If you do have contact with the child, I would plan fun, exciting, and new experiences with them. Show them unconditional love, which you're probably doing already, and let them know through your words and through your actions that you're there for them no matter what. This advice really can be applied to targeted parents as well, I think. So another thing that I would say is, don't bring up the alienator. There's a cult mentality I've talked about in my videos before. It's like a cult of two people. So if you bring up or criticize or challenge the alienator, the child is going to see that as an affront to themselves as well. So don't bring up the alienator. Just remember that cult mentality. Actually, it might be in your favor to say something nice about the alienator to the child. Now, I know that's really hard, but I remember my stepmom kind of played that game. My brother said to her, Marilyn, my mom hates you. And she said, your mom, I think your mom sounds like a really nice woman. So you can play that game, because the child is going to want people to like the alienator, praise the alienator. You can also show them what a fun, kind, and supportive person you are. Extended family members really can make a difference. It sure did in my case. My grandmother is my favorite person on earth, my dad's mom. And she was always that person for me that was safe, just exuding love. And she always made me feel really special and really loved. So extended family members really can help the alienated child out, especially if they have access to the child. This is going to challenge whatever lies they have been told about you. When they see you being a kind and funny and supportive family member, it's going to cause cognitive dissonance, because they've likely been told lies about you and your family and maybe your motives. And that cognitive dissonance is going to feel really uncomfortable for the child, because they need their reality to be reality. But sometimes, often, evidence in their life says otherwise. So cognitive dissonance is a good thing to try to stir up in the alienated child. And I would encourage targeted parents and all of their extended family to give the alienated child the unconditional love that they're not getting from the alienator. There are certain things that the alienator is probably not telling the child, which is all rooted in unconditional love. I love the person you are. I'm so proud to be your parent. I am so proud of the son or daughter you are. Just really pointing out how you appreciate them. Now, if you're not in contact with the child, here is what I think could really help. Support the targeted parent. Support that father or mother or brother in this case. And there are certain tangible ways that I think you can support them. Number one, research. Do research on parental alienation. Doing research and finding out that it's not an experience exclusive to you and your family helps in so many ways. Having that knowledge, knowing how the alienator works, helps you catch up, because they're always 5 steps ahead of you. Do research on parental alienation and convey that research to the targeted person in your life. And if you're an extended family member and you're trying to help the situation in the child and you're not in contact with the child, besides doing research on parental alienation, which includes reading books, watching lectures, reading research studies, 2 is words of affirmation. Assure the targeted parent in your life that this is not their fault. They do not deserve this. And for anyone listening who's a targeted parent, this is not your fault. You do not deserve this. Your daughter, your son, they still love you. They do. The truth is that children love their parents. We are biologically programmed to love our parents. This has been proven. Children who are physically abused, when CPS comes, most of the time, they defend their parent and they stick by their parent. If a child rejects a parent and it's not justified, they still love their parent. And more than anything, probably, they really want to be having that loving relationship with the rejected parent. That was the biggest pain for me, always believing that my dad didn't love me. Not being able to have that loving relationship was the most painful thing. So they want your love. They do still love you. You can convey that to the targeted parent in your life and remind them, just like I would remind any targeted parents watching right now, that the alienated child has been manipulated, brainwashed, psychologically abused to be used as a weapon to hurt you. They're being abused as well. They're in pain as well. And this can help sometimes if targeted parents are feeling resentful or angry towards their child. 3, I would encourage your targeted parent in your life, in this case, it's the person's brother. I would encourage your brother to find a therapist who understands parental alienation, coercive control, and probably PTSD or CPTSD, especially just trauma. Targeted parents out there, it's important to take care of yourself. You have to eat well, exercise often, go to work, and get outside and socialize and build a wonderful life. I know it's so hard, but you need to build that wonderful life so that when your child does figure out the truth, your life will attract them right back. And it will be proof that you never gave up on them because you were fighting to be the best person you could be. It also will give them an example in the future of how someone can be healthy-minded and make wise decisions and find success in their life. The important thing to remember, in my view, just my view, is that no matter what, this is always going to be your child. This is your child. You are their parent. You know them. It might not feel that way, and I understand that. I even asked my dad after all this time, am I still the same as when I was a little girl, 4, 5, 6? He said, "Oh yeah, you're the same, Mads, you're the same." So your child at the core, they're always going to be there, even if they do unfortunately become somewhat of a shell of themselves due to this abuse. But you know them and they're your child, and don't ever think otherwise. No one can take that away from you. No one can take that away from you. Now, the fear that I'm talking about with parents feeling like they're walking on a tightrope, walking on eggshells, this fear is based on a true threat. The craziness of this whole entire situation does put targeted parents in a lose situation. For example, it seems like you can't win no matter what. I remember when my dad would call and make a lot of effort and insist that I talk to him. And the alienator in that situation often says to the child, they're stalking you, they don't respect your boundaries. And on the other hand, if you do give the child space, the alienator will often tell his child that you abandoned them and you don't care about them, you left them. So it's an agonizing battle, and targeted parents often can't win either way. You're attacked for everything you do. Piece by piece, the don't blame part, referring to your child, I would tend to agree with that if we're referring to the alienation. The alienation is not your child's fault. They have been systematically programmed to believe lies and other allegations probably that are simply untrue. This has been a process that the alienator has put to work, and it's almost like a second nature thing that they do because 95% of these people have personality disorders. That's why there's so many similar patterns, because it derives from a personality disorder. That's my belief. I've also talked to some experts on this and they agree. So keep the blame where it belongs. Now, I know that oftentimes there's the question of, well, what if they're being disrespectful? I can't accept my child being disrespectful. So the alienation is not their fault, you might think. And at the same time, I can't tolerate my child being disrespectful. That's not going to be a good thing to allow them to do as a parent. So you can inform them that they're being disrespectful and inform them of the consequences of their actions. And you can establish expectations about what behavior you find acceptable and unacceptable. At the same time, please don't place the blame for the alienation on your child. It's important to keep the blame where it belongs, on the pathological parent. And the second part, don't question the behavior. I would challenge this one, that you are not, that experts tell parents don't question the behavior. One other thing someone suggested is that targeted parents have been told don't question the behavior. But I think this one probably depends on the circumstance. For example, if your child has suddenly started acting cold or distant with you before you had a close and loving relationship, I think it's not only okay to question the behavior, I think it's paramount that you question that behavior and you find out what has caused this change as soon as possible and nip it in the bud. Because once parental alienation is really solidified, I believe that's when it's a lot harder to reverse. There are other times, though, where I would say don't question the behavior. For example, it's not really productive to get angry in response to an alienated child showing you disrespect, showing you anger, any behavior that you're not comfortable with. Anger usually begets anger. And I understand anger is a natural response to this situation, but maybe instead, in that example, you could take a softer approach. And something that I think is true across the board that might help some targeted parents is to reframe your thoughts when your child displays anger towards you. So, what you need to realize and know, and just take my word for it if you can. I've talked to dozens of child survivors now. So, I think I have like a good handle on this. Realize that when alienated children display anger, they're most often simply covering up their pain. They're using anger to cover up their pain. If you're on the receiving end of the anger, please try to reframe it in your brain. Instead of thinking, they hate me, they're so angry, they're so mad at me, you can reframe it to, wow, they're really hurting. They are in unbelievable pain. One more thing on the topic of experts saying that you shouldn't tell your kids certain things. This is a little ironic because the important thing for alienated kids to learn to do is to critically analyze things. So this is the goal for what alienated children need. So I don't agree with the idea of not questioning things in this situation. I think it's even more important to show your child how to be a critical thinker. And you can do this by asking about their social views on politics with their older kids. Maybe show them a thought-provoking documentary or show. And most importantly, you can lead by example, by being a critical thinker in your own life, in your own decisions. If you can show your child by leading with example how you critically analyze things, especially things that people wouldn't analyze, it might inspire them to think a different way. I would urge targeted parents to focus on the future. My dad is so good at this. Oh my gosh, almost too good at this. He just wants to focus on the present and the future. He's one of the, he's a glass half full guy every day of his life. He's so positive. And that's been really helpful for me because I need that. That's the hallmark of having PTSD or CPTSD, which I think 100% or close to 100% of alienated children are struggling with, which is often misdiagnosed as anxiety or depression or OCD or an eating disorder or blah, blah, blah. It's usually complex post-traumatic stress disorder caused by daily, inescapable psychological abuse. It also can cause physical illness, stomach aches, headaches, autoimmune conditions. Someone said, I'm trying my best to break through to my kids after years of alienation. I know time is the obvious answer, but what else can I do or say to help them see me as a loving parent versus the monster I was made out to be. I often think that it would be really helpful to have the child to say to the child everything that the alienator is not telling them. And those are things that my dad tells me now that really mean the world to me, mean so much to me, help me heal. And I'll just give you a few of those. So I love the person you are. I'm proud to be your mom or dad. I'm proud that you're my son or daughter. You are so special to me. These things are messages of unconditional love, and at least in my case, I never got any of that from my alienator. And every time I hear it from my dad, it does heal a part of me a bit at a time, and I appreciate it that much more. So all of those things that I just mentioned are things that you can tell your child that would probably mean a lot, I think. Also, I believe that if the child is in therapy, which they need to be in therapy, in my opinion, if they're alienated, with the therapist that they feel is safe, it would be really great if they could. Sorry, I'm just smiling because, yeah, I'm realizing this is an obvious answer. People probably try to do this, where you uncover what the child believes about the parent, the specific beliefs, whether it's daddy abuses mommy or daddy's mean to mommy, mommy doesn't love me, or the specific beliefs, because the alienation really does thrive with secrecy. And there are a lot of people, professionals included, who are scared of the alienator. There are a lot of family members as well who will be scared of the alienator, scared to stand up to them, scared to sanction them in any way. That's the first step, I think. And that's why I'm doing this project, because I'm trying to expose it. I'm trying to tell the truth, because I know this stuff thrives in secrecy. It thrives with fear.